Listen. Hey. Of course. Just the two of us. Hey, hey, hey. Let me cut off all my electronics. How about that? We do this in real time. We don't do this in fake time. Alexa, volume 2. Okay. Now, of course, all my notes ain't print, but that's okay because we going to make it do what it automatically does. Greetings, greetings, and greetings some more. Yes. Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl is live and in living color. Okay? Live and in living color. Let's see. Let me share it. I got to share it over here and share it over there. This is what happens when you're your own tech person. But guess what? That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. Okay. Let's see where we at here. All right, y'all. So, I want to say welcome to you all. My name is Sister Femi, and welcome to Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl. You are here with me today for episode 11. Episode 11, we are talking about coping mechanisms. Are they healing you or holding you back? That's what it's all about not playing in your own face. If anybody saw my flyer, that's what I put out there. So I'm going to get started the way I like to get started, is with a little bit of prayer, a little bit of prayer here, a little bit of prayer there. We're going to pray our way through right now. Heavenly Father, we thank you right now for this time. We thank you for the use of technology as always. We bless your name for this day, and we bless your name for this space, and always for your grace. So I ask that you be here with us, with me, and anyone else who tunes in on this podcast, Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl, a place where we call ourselves trying to heal and get this thing right, okay? So I thank you for being here in our presence. Ashe, amen, amen, all right? So let's get into this. I'm not going to hold you. I'm going right into this because I got this is a nice tea-filled podcast, okay? A nice tea-filled podcast. So my question to you is this. Have you ever found yourself scrolling endlessly on your phone, binge watching shows, going down the rabbit hole, and not really, paying attention to the things that you need to be doing? You're pretty much on the lines of procrastinating, okay? That's where you're finding yourself, but you deep down in it, and you should be doing something else. You should be taking care of some other kind of business. You should be writing something, cleaning something, or any of those kind of different things, right? And this is the things that you should be doing, right? But because here's the truth, not every coping method is a healing method, meaning not everything that we find ourselves doing is something that we're supposed to be doing, okay? So when I talk about, today we're going to talk about coping mechanisms, and we've heard the phrase before, but I really want everybody to understand what it really means to have a coping mechanism. Coping mechanisms are those habits that we find ourselves in, those behaviors that we find ourselves in, or those mental strategies, those things that we think we need to try to survive in certain situations and in everyday activities of our daily living, if you will, right? And a lot of times, coping mechanisms came out of disappointments, out of trauma, and out of those things that, that we didn't expect to happen to us, but they did, right? Difficult emotions to really kind of grasp and deal with, if you will. And so with that, the reason why I wanted to talk about coping mechanisms is because as we're talking about healing and healing through, because this is what this podcast is all about. If you've never been here before, what we talk about here is how to heal through the different things that we've experienced in life, and finding those ways on how to do it. And why it's called Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl is because me being someone who grew up in a church environment, I found a lot of times that I found myself hurt through a lot of disappointing times in the church as well as outside of the church. But because I believe in God, this is why it's called Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl, because I'm sharing different stories in each episode of healing that we're going forward in. I know I've experienced something, and I want to share that on this platform, okay? So with that, the misconception, we think that a lot of times You know, we might have got through something that hurt us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing and liking. Okay. Um, we feel like that we survived something, and we came up with this technique to not be get hurt, not to get hurt again, not to go through that situation again, when in reality what we need to realize is that if we didn't do it the right way and we're not doing it the healed way, our coping mechanisms can not only hurt other people, but they more so hurt us because we're not facing whatever that pain is. We're not really facing and trying to heal whatever that is if we have not taken certain steps. Now, I'm not saying everything that we've gone through that we're just carrying all of it, but you just never know, because what I found out and what I realized for myself is that there were some traumatic situations that happened to me from young, that as I continued to gradually live my life, not only did I not focus on healing those things from when I was young, but I continued to keep going, and then different traumatic experiences happened to me, and that built on top of that, and then I didn't have time to heal that, and I kept on going, calling myself surviving and using these coping mechanisms to make sure I quote unquote defended myself and protected myself from getting hurt again, but still I've still got hurt festering underneath. And this is where the coping mechanisms can really be a more painful situation for us than just those that we deal with on a daily basis in a relational manner, because this is all about relationships. So how can we talk about having relationships with others before we even consider having a true and genuine relationship with ourselves? Okay, because a lot of people, and I say this, I say this, a lot of people, if you see yourself as somebody like me, that used to be on it's easier to help somebody else before I help myself, you're ignoring a lot of coping mechanisms that you need to be dealing with and healing some underlying issues. That's the reality. When you don't want to face what you have to do for you first and foremost, and you're easier to go and help somebody else, you're more than likely neglecting yourself. Bottom line, you're more than likely neglecting yourself, right? And the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to neglect ourselves when we have to live with ourselves on a daily basis, right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that, right? So for me, it's like, what if I told you, here's the question. What if I told you that the way you're coping might be the very thing stopping your growth? So yes, stopping your healing, which your healing creates growth. And a lot of people don't put those two and two together. And that's something that we want to stop and really pay attention to, because how can we grow unless we heal some things? You know what I mean? You're growing as we're going and coping. We're building on top of, we're throwing bricks on top of uneasy ground. Okay, the uneasy ground of our trauma, the uneasy ground of our healing, our lack of healing, our pain, the things that bother us, the things that seem to have broken us down over the course of time. And we have not taken that time to actually even stop and say, hey, what am I doing? Where's the core of this? A lot of times you might see people who are mean. Like, I come across people, like my people play with me, and they do tell me, you mean, why you being mean to me, and things of that sort. And it's not so much that I think I'm being mean. I know I'm not being mean. To me, in my mind, I'm just letting you know what it is and how it is, and trying to do it in the best way possible. Now, there might be some cynical moments, you know what I mean, and things of that sort, but you might actually come across some people sometimes, and you're trying to figure out why they like this, why they just seem to be nasty attitude, nasty face. Okay, because I was just laughing with my husband about something today. Nasty face, nasty, the way they come out on people, they're not coming across like they're happy with themselves. And 9 times out of 10, they are not. 9 times out of 10, greetings, 9 times out of 10, they're not only are they not happy with themselves, they're not healing, they're taking it out on other people. Sometimes, you know, like for me, I'm the kind of person that likes to cocoon. I don't like when I'm not in a good space to be around people, because I don't want to put that off on anybody. You have to recognize that for yourself when you're not in a good place. You have to recognize that for yourself when you're in a place that's very disturbing. Some people don't mind sharing that with others. I tend to not like to share that with others. I tend to like to keep that to myself and go in my own corner and deal with whatever that might be, and put myself in a better space before I go and deal with other people. And it's so funny because I've had people say to me, "Oh, you always seem to be so happy. Oh, you always." It's not so much that I'm always happy, but that's how I want life to be for me. I want to emulate what I want life to continue to be for me, which is always upbeat, up-tempo, and happy. And I'm tickled personally when I see people and people see me, and immediately the first thing they say to me is, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? You don't seem like everything is okay with you." You understand what I'm saying to you? And I'm tickled by it because people are really actually tuned into where I am. They feel my energy. My energy is high. My energy is strong. I already know that about myself. And I'm quite honored when people can recognize that I may not be myself. I may not be the go happy lucky person that I am at that moment. And no, it's not that I want anybody to recognize it per se, but I'm always honored when I see that people care enough about me to see when I'm not in my best place. And so, coping mechanisms are things that we have to be mindful of, because we might be doing ourselves a disservice. And we don't want to do that. You know what I mean? How could we expect others to treat us good and we refuse to treat ourselves good, right? Now, don't get it twisted. There are some positive coping mechanisms and there are some negative coping mechanisms. Right now, I'm going to talk about the negative coping mechanisms, because it's the negative coping mechanisms that we need to work on, that we need to be able to identify for ourselves, and a lot of times don't even realize it unless somebody's willing to share it the way that I want to share it today on this podcast. Excuse me. I'm going to go through some things because a lot of times people do not realize the tools that they can be using to help themselves get to the next level of their growth. Okay. So one of my first mechanisms that I use, again, we're talking negatives. Let's go on to negatives. All right. Ooh, yeah, I had to touch that. One coping mechanism that I can talk about is overeating and undereating. Emotional eating, emotional taking in of food. We know that there's some people that are emotional eaters. When they're depressed, they just want to eat. You understand what I'm saying to you? I remember back in the days, I used to want to be. Why would anybody want to be an emotional eater? Because I couldn't gain any weight. That ain't my problem now, but that used to be my problem, where I couldn't gain any weight. It seemed like my metabolism was like on fire all the time, and I could eat anything and everything and never gain any weight. So I used to want that until I realized that is a problem area for people. Overeating and undereating, because I used to be an undereater, where if I wasn't in the best mood, I didn't want to eat. My stomach and my head were not friends, and I didn't want to eat. I didn't eat anything for days. For days, I'd nibble here, nibble there, but having a full meal, I could do it. And that was a coping mechanism. Of course, it's not healthy, because guess what? Every skinny person ain't healthy and every overweight person ain't healthy. It's all a matter of mindset and where your body is. Where is your body? So that was one, right? Using food as an emotional control, comfort, or control, all right? Then we have excessive social media and TV. So you've heard of couch potatoes, and you've seen people now in the day of social media, people on their phones when they're at a table with other people, not talking. That means you're not communicating, and they get stuck on their phone, and then they go down a rabbit hole. Me personally, because I do spend time on social media for business, I have found myself setting aside time to be able to be on social media, because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of not paying attention to the things that I need to be paying attention to, and focusing on the things that I need to be focusing on, and getting things accomplished that I need to be getting accomplished, because I'm using social media as a temporary relief for long-term consequences. Okay? If I have to have a difficult conversation with my husband, I'm not going to go get on social media. I'm not going to go get on social media, because the one thing I don't know if you all know, The one thing about social media and the way these algorithms move, it's like they can feel your energy, and they're spitting all kind of things at you that you don't need to be taking in, when you need to actually be doing something else to focus on healing a better level of communication. And a lot of people don't realize that social media, as beautiful as it is also a trap if you're not on it for the right reason. It's one thing to be on it just to find a moment, a temporary moment of coming down from your busy day, coming down from your focused day, your productive day. You understand what I'm saying to you? It can be a distraction that you don't genuinely need. Another coping mechanism is alcohol and substance abuse. We know this one all too well from others and from self. I was an alcoholic young. I was also a substance abuser from young. Okay, and it was exactly that, a coping mechanism, until I had to realize one day for myself that I am not progressing. I am not producing, because all I'm doing is a security blanket, because that's what it was, a security blanket, trying to understand how to get to that next level when I can't get to that next level because I'm too busy holding on to my security blanket and not facing whatever it is that I need to be facing in order to move forward. Then we have isolation and emotional withdrawal. Now, I mentioned earlier, a few moments earlier, where I said that anytime I'm in a bad place, I don't like to be around a lot of people. That doesn't mean that I don't have my people that I consult with. It doesn't mean that I don't have my sounding board. It doesn't mean that I don't have my good coping mechanisms to be able to get me through those quiet times. I like to cocoon because I don't want to pour that off on anybody. I don't want to give anybody those negative vibes. I don't want to give anybody any negative energy. I don't want any of my negativity to jump on somebody else. Okay, because I care about other people such that way that I care about myself, that I want to be true, transparent, and genuine for myself, to myself, right? And then there's the emotional withdrawal part. That's avoiding relationships. That's avoiding growth. Avoiding the fact that, you know, if you hold yourself accountable to some decisions that you may have made that were not in your best interest, that will allow you to go, you know what? I'll be more mindful next time, and then make a better decision for myself, because now I'm not emotionally withdrawing myself from dealing with people, from talking to people, from handling situations the way I should be handling them in the first place, right? And then there is this one. This one was a popular one with me. Busyness and overworking. Busyness and overworking. Using work and activities to avoid emotions, to avoid and escape emotions. That's what we call being a workaholic. Okay? That's what we call being a workaholic. And I know that one all too well for myself personally, where I'll just be busy being busy, and ain't busy doing nothing. Overworking because I'm trying to avoid something. You understand me? Now, don't get it twisted. I'm a worker. I believe in working because that's just the cloth I'm cut from. You know, idle mind is the devil's playground. And if I'm going to sit on my hands, I'm not going to be able to eat the way that I like to be able to eat. You feel me? And that's not proverbial food. That could be spiritual food. That could be traveling. That could be recreational food. That could be whatever I feel like putting my hands to that will allow me that once this work is done, I can go and play just as hard, right? But there are some people who dive into that world. They don't want to face relationships. They don't want to face their pain. They don't want to face their disappointments. They don't want to face those things. So they go deep, dark, and dive hard into overworking. You know those kind of people that every time you turn around, they're on overtime at work. They're on overtime at work, and they just constantly doing overtime instead of being home. They don't want to be home because there's some stuff at home they're trying to avoid. You understand what I'm saying to you? You know those kind of people. And they may just be trying to avoid something, right? And those are just a few negative coping mechanisms, right? And those are the things that affect us. I'm going to get into the coping mechanisms that affect others in a minute, but I'm talking about those that affect us, our own personal selves. Because again, like I said, we have to have a good relationship with ourselves before we can talk about having a good relationship with others, right? So some of my positive coping mechanisms, and these are the ones that help and don't hinder. My first one that I run to is prayer and meditation. I love prayer and meditation. I will walk around. I no longer talk to myself. I talk to my creator. I love prayer and I love to meditate. I love to be able to sit and just be still, because there's a certain level of power that is within sitting and being still that I think a lot of people take for granted because they're so worried about sitting and being still. If you have a relationship with your creator the way that you're supposed to, sitting and being still allows you, one, to empty the space of your mind, empty those areas of anxiety that you might be dealing with, empty those areas of depression, empty all of those emotions that we sometimes walk around with on a constant basis, and allow a space to just be still and be, and understand that we don't have to control every second of the day. We don't have to try to control every second of where our mind is processing through. Sometimes we can just be quiet and be still. And in those moments, you can get answers to questions that you may have put out there to the creator. You can get answers to questions that you may already know the answers to. But because your mind was so busy focusing on how to get through and over and around things, that the answer just couldn't get through all of the obstacles of your mind. And that's the one thing that I love about prayer and meditation, is because it offers you that moment of peace. It offers you that moment of, okay, I may not have the answer right this second, but I can stop and I can focus on nothing. And the answer will find me, and I don't have to go looking for it. Again, that is one of my favorite coping mechanisms, is to pray and meditate. I can pray and meditate in a room full of people. It has just gotten that serious for me. And I'm careful and I'm mindful, especially if people are going to require my attention, not to do that, because I can sit and meditate and lock people out. I can lock my surroundings out, because I really have learned that, again, an idle mind is the devil's playground, as my mom used to always tell me. But an idle mind, meaning a meditating mind, can be sitting there waiting for divine answers and divine direction. So for that, I'm grateful for those moments of just stopping and being still. Prayer isn't always what you put out. Sometimes prayer is just sitting there, putting that question out there, and then sitting there and waiting for the answer to be given to you. That's also prayer, because I think a lot of times people think about prayer and they look at it as a Chinese menu, to just put stuff out, put stuff out, put stuff out, put stuff out. And that's not the case with prayer. Prayer is a conversation between you and the divine, okay? My next coping mechanism that I enjoy is journaling. I do enjoy journaling. I have come across some of my journals from back in the days, and I sit, and every now and again, I don't go down the rabbit hole of reading them, but I might just flip open a page just to see where I was at that time, just so I can get an understanding as to where I am now and how far I've come in my thinking, in my processing. So journaling helps us to be able to release some things that are always bottled up within us, and do it in a productive way. Because if you write it down and make it plain, a lot of times what you'll find out is that once you wrote it down, you're no longer carrying it on you. You're no longer carrying that weight on you. Another coping mechanism that I believe to be a very positive one is exercise and movement. Anybody who knows me knows that it's not that I have a problem sitting still, but I love being active. I love being energetic, because that burns off fat. Let's go there first. But then it also lets you be mindful. Your body is exercising, your blood is pumping, and you're moving. You're creating movement for yourself. That's a coping mechanism, because a lot of people sit and they sit in depression. Now, that's not positive at all. That's not meditating at all. They're sitting because, we see shows and stuff like that about it all the time. My 600-pound life. Hello, somebody. They didn't just get there that way just because. They got there because emotionally, they were someplace they don't need to be, and they stayed there just a little bit too long. All right? So using physical, that's why you'll see some people when they go to the gym, when they go for a walk, that's movement. That's healthy movement, right? And then we also have healthy communication. And when I say healthy communication, it's not talking just anybody. It could come in the form of talking to a confidant, or just talking healthily when you're communicating with people. Taking a moment to just stop and say, you know what, let me do this in love and kindness. Right? Let me talk to this person in love and kindness, not being fake, not being false, but truly, genuinely how you want to talk and communicate with people, right? Talking through your feelings instead of avoiding them. If somebody have done you wrong, talk to them. Let them know that they have done you wrong, not in a way that you're looking for pity, but in a way that you can let them know, I don't respect that. I didn't appreciate that. I didn't appreciate how you make me feel, what it looked like. Whatever the situation may have been or may be, communication is always the best way to handle something in coping with, because then you learn something. You learn something about yourself, and then you learn something about the other person, okay? And then we have therapy and counseling. I co-sign therapy. I co-sign counseling because I can even remember from a young girl, I have friends that went to like different organizations for therapy. And before I knew it, I found myself in that situation where I wanted to counsel with a therapist. And I did. I mean, even as an adult, I've gone to therapists. I don't mind going to therapists. My godfather, who was also my pastor at one time, God bless his whole soul, he was my therapist. I would go to him and consult with him all the time. As far as being a man, I would consult with him because sometimes men think differently than women. And I just needed to know, well, what's in the mind of a man for X, Y, and Z? How would men handle this X, Y, and Z? You know what I'm saying? So those things, that's a good thing to be able to have and to do, because guess what? There's absolutely nothing negative about it. Okay? You just have to be mindful on who you're consulting with and who you're counseling with, because every counsel is not wise counsel. Okay? You want to make sure that you're doing and talking to someone who you know for a fact, one, that they have a divine relationship with, which would be amazing. One, that you have a trusting relationship with, because you never want to put yourself out there to somebody in a source that you can't trust. You know what I'm saying? You never want to do that, right? And so unhealthy coping numbs but never heals. So those things that I talked about, the unhealthy coping, those things are not letting you thrive. You're only surviving, and you're more than likely surviving in not the most healthiest space. Okay, so I want to say thank y'all. Let me say this real quick. Thank y'all for still being here with me. Thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing to this channel. All right, so going forward, I want to talk about how to recognize coping mechanisms. Okay, how can you identify when you're stressed, when you're hurt, or when you're disappointed? And one of the main things that you can do to try to identify is you can ask yourself, is this helping me to grow, or is it keeping me stuck? Whatever the coping mechanism may be, whatever your coping mechanism may be, you need to ask yourself, because you're always supposed to be growing and not finding yourself stuck, right? You need to be able to pinpoint them for yourself. One, we talk about this day and age, we always hear people talk about triggers. We always hear people talk about triggers. And one of the things that you can figure out for yourself is, if you're ever triggered, look at what your response is when you're triggered. Whatever your response is a coping mechanism. Okay? Whether that is lashing out, as they call it, crashing out, okay? Or do you go within? Do you walk away somber? Do you walk away sad? Do you come back sarcastic? That's a coping mechanism. You understand what I'm saying to you? And these are ways for you to be able to identify them for yourself, because everybody's coping mechanisms are not the same. A lot of ours are similar to the others, but a lot of them are not the same. We don't all cope the same way with situations and circumstances. We have all not had to deal with the same trauma along the way of life, right? And then we have to figure out and learn how to replace unhealthy coping mechanisms with intentional healing practices. Now, I went through that list of healing practices that we can use, right? So we want to shift from a numbing state to an active state. We want to be able to move forward in more positive, in a more positive light, in a more positive mindset, in a more positive aspect of how we're going to handle and deal with life. Because I don't know if you know it or not, but as you grow in one space and you go to that next level, it seems like you've graduated, but you're about to be tried again, and you're going to have to use whatever that healthy coping mechanism was on this level. You may have to run to it on that very next level. Okay? I can tell you that, again, from experience. I speak from experience. And it's kind of funny because I actually have a coach right now that's helping me get some things in line on my back end side for my group coaching that I'm going to be releasing in a few weeks, right? And in that, it's so funny because she always tells me, make sure you tell people who you are. Honestly, one of my coping mechanisms was not to advertise who I am. Why did I do that? I did that because I have a thing about titles. I think that sometimes people put too much weight and too much responsibility on titles. Yeah, we're responsible to certain levels, but sometimes people put people on pedestals. Sometimes people put them in places that they don't need to be putting people in, because everybody is still just trying to figure out how to get this life done right, the right way, right? So she gets on me all the time about me talking about who I am and letting people understand who I am and why I have the experiences that I have and who do I come off? Who am I that I come off talking about the things that I come off? If you're not going to tell people where you get your experiences from, how do people know that they can trust where you're coming from? You understand what I'm saying to you? So for that, I say that to you every so often from experience. I know what it's like, right? So you want to do the swapping. Instead of scrolling on your phone, pick up your journal and go sit down and write. Go sit down and write where you are at that very moment. What should you be getting accomplished? What did you not get accomplished and why? What can you change about it and make it happen so that you can go forward in your growth, right? And then you want to set limits, because scrolling, playing video games, talking smack on the phone with your girlfriends and your homeboys, those things are distractions to you taking those greater steps to healing yourself. Okay? Those are distractions. All right? And you want to replace them with growth-centered activities. Bottom line, that's what it's all about. All right? And then the other thing, what I realized about coping mechanisms is they allow us to bury our emotions in places we don't need to be burying them. They allow us to bury them. Why are we burying our emotions? Why are we not facing them? Okay? Why are we not facing them head on to understand why we're even feeling the way that we're feeling? We want to avoid them. That's ridiculous. We should want to feel them so we can work through them to understand how to live healthily and grow better. Grow in a better space. All right? And then again, worst case scenario, and I say worst case scenario, is we may have to find some therapy. We may have to call somebody on the phone and get some real help on how to maneuver through some things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right? And if you're anything like me, all right, a human being that's just trying to get it right, but you have a divine connection with your creator, there's absolutely nothing with praying. There's absolutely nothing with praying when you feel like you want to crash out, when you feel like you just want to go in, when you feel like you just want to cocoon away and you want to bottle your emotions away, when you feel like you just want to have an attitude, when you feel like you want to overeat, when you feel like there's just some hard decisions that need to be made through your emotional state, you should just pray, because prayer changes things. I don't know if you know it or not, but prayer genuinely changes things. And if you don't think that your prayers are being heard, if you find yourself in a place that you don't think your prayers are being heard, as you all may have seen time and time again, sometimes it's just a test for you to stay faithful and walk forward no matter what, and your answers will come to you. The answers will be given to you the way that they should. You don't have to figure this out alone. Healing isn't just a process. It's a partnership with our Creator. It's a partnership with our divine. It is something that I believe that our Creator understands, that we will endure some things on this earth, and He's there. They're there to sit there and wait for us to look for some guidance and some direction, and even just basic clarity, because half the time we know what we should be doing. But because we're so bogged down with the emotions and the disappointment of things, it gets kind of layered. It gets layered underneath some things, right? It gets layered. So that is what I wanted to share today. But what I also, let me not finish this. I want to talk about, now I wanted to tap into this real quick, and I'm going to run through this real quick. I'm not doing a whole segment on this, but I'm running through this real quick because I thought this was really pretty cool while I was doing my digging and doing my studying for getting ready for this podcast, where I wanted to align some urban vocabulary with some of the coping mechanisms that we have to deal with, and some that we dish out as well as have taken when dealing and interacting with other people, right? So here we go. So here are some coping mechanisms. I want to talk about them a little bit real quick, but also the urban definition for them, so that when you hear these things online and you hear these in communication, you'll understand what people are talking about, okay? And it's kind of funny because I remember there was a time when I would be asking my kids stuff, and my kids would be like, I don't know, mommy, what that mean, because I would know things before they do. And they'd be looking at me like, here she go. But yeah, I need to communicate. I need to know what's going on around me, and I need to be able to communicate properly, because that's what it's all about, healthy communication, right? So, emotional withholding. That's called ghosting in real life. Okay, so if y'all ever heard about somebody ghosting somebody, that is what holding back your emotions from somebody, and if they've offended you in some kind of way, right? So it's giving like the cold shoulder, one word replies on your text messages, or full silence treatment while they wonder what did they do wrong. Never make anybody wonder what they did wrong, especially if they did something wrong. Sometimes people just part ways because they part ways. It's not necessarily that anybody did anything wrong to anybody. Trust me, people grow apart all the time. But we're talking about when somebody has done somebody wrong. All right? We're talking about outright done somebody wrong. And people ghost, all right? And they ghost you. You ghost somebody, or they ghost you, and you trying to figure out what's going on. That's a coping mechanism. That's an unhealthy coping mechanism. And how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? Be grown and communicate. Be grown and reach out to somebody, because see me, and I don't know, and I know people always saw it as confrontational, but I have always been the kind of person from young. Only recent have I really let God hold my tongue, and what they call hold my mule, because I'm one of those people that if I feel like somebody has a problem with me, I'll walk up to them and I'll be like, hey, can I ask you a question? You got an issue with me? Did I do something to offend you? Especially if I don't know I did something to offend somebody. Okay? Now, sometimes we know we outright have done something to offend somebody, but I'm talking about if you don't know. I am one that will confront people. I will say, hey, did I do something to you? Please let me know if I did something to you, because I want to hold myself accountable, because one, it'll allow me to hold myself accountable. Two, it'll allow me to apologize if it was something that I did wrong or made someone feel a way. And then three, it'll allow me to go and self-assess. So that doesn't happen to me again in the future, because sometimes we really genuinely don't want to offend people, okay? But you do, and you might. And you might not know that, and that person might not even come out and say that they did. But you need to create a healthy environment around you, okay? You need to create a healthy environment around you, right? So then we have another one. Here's the next one. Deflection and avoiding accountability. Now, they call this playing the Uno reverse card, right? Playing the Uno reverse card is every time someone calls you out and you flip it back on them. It's almost what we used to call back in the day tit for tat. But it's more so about flipping it back on them to make it seem like they're the ones that made the situation bad and not necessarily you. So that's what they call playing the Uno reverse card. And how do you fix it? Hold yourself accountable to your part. Own your own part and the part that you played. You can't heal without acknowledging that that's something that you did. Okay? You can't heal unless you acknowledge that. Okay? Let me see. Then we have, I'm going through them because I got a list here. Being overly independent. Now, this was a problem I had at one time. That's the I don't need nobody energy, right? That's a coping mechanism. It's not an honest mechanism. It's not honest. I had somebody on last week and he specifically said he don't need nobody. But that's not a healthy coping mechanism because we were born of someone and then others came from us. We're all a lineage of community. We're a lineage of community. So although you might want to say that you don't need nobody and have that I don't need nobody energy, that's not the way that we were created. We were created to need each other in a circle of a healthy community, a healthy environment for each other, right? So it's like you acting like you self-made in every way and the creator didn't do it. You did it on your own. Nobody helped you get there. You got there on your own. Poppycock. I'm using the term poppycock. And yes, I'm that old. I can do that. That's BS. Okay? Because everybody had somebody help them. Whether it be through a prayer, because I know somebody prayed for me. Okay? Whether it be through a prayer or through a kind word to somebody else. I've had people speak good things on my name all the time. And it's allowed me to walk through another door that I didn't expect myself to walk through. Here, I got one even better. I can use this as a prime example. When I got here to where I am in Virginia, I started doing this fashion entrepreneur, being a seamstress, doing my thing. And I was never one to go out into the community. I was never one to go outside. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it. I didn't know nobody. I didn't want to be out there like that, right? I wasn't putting me out there. Being an e-commerce on social media was good enough for me, right? But then I got into a situation where somebody met me, liked me, enjoyed the skills that I had and showed, and spoke up on my behalf, which then allowed me to be in one of my first fashion shows. Had nobody spoken up on my behalf, I may not have been seen. People may not have understood that I was actually not a bad person and that the girl got skills and she know what she's doing. She just need, she just need a little oomph, and here we're going to support her. And that's how I was able to get known in my community, because somebody spoke up for me, if that makes any sense. No, I didn't ask for it, but I'm grateful for it, because guess what? That's what community is all about. That's what community is all about, right? So it's not that I don't need nobody. We all need somebody, and it's all right to ask for help every so often. If you need help, it's okay to ask for help. A matter of fact, I'm about to reach out to that same person who I know put their mouth out on me to bless me and see if they need my help with an endeavor they got coming up. I saw they have an endeavor coming up. I want to know if I can be of assistance if I'm around during that time of their endeavor. Because for the last 2 years, I haven't been around. So I'm hoping I can be around this year. You understand me? Because community is what it's about. Loving on each other in community is a beautiful and healthy space. Okay? It's a beautiful and healthy space. I'm going to do one more. Let me see. Here's one. Here's one. Dag, it's two of them. But here's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use this one. Holding grudges instead of resolving issues. We call that the petty king and queen behavior. We know that very well. Somebody being petty. Instead of handling the situation, instead of facing it, you holding on to holding on to a grudge, which is holding on to the drama, right? But can I tell you something? That don't pay your bills. You act unbothered when it's brought up, but every chance you get, you think about that one time that somebody did this and that one time somebody did this, and you want to reference it to this and reference to that. The way to fix that is to let go of the resentment. Let go of it. Let go of it. Don't be petty. Don't try to pay them back with that same energy they gave you. Be mature and step your energy up. When they go low, you go high. You go so high that you ain't even got to pay attention to that energy. You get what I'm saying to you? So that's the petty king, petty queen. And how do you fix that? Closure is for you, not for them. All right? It's for you, not for them. All right? So now I'm going to get into my teas. It's about that time that we talk about some teas. Let's talk about the tea. Let's talk about the tea. Disclaimer statement, I am not a licensed herbalist yet. So when I recommend these teas, I recommend them because they're ones that I like to take. But if you're pregnant or any of those other things, you need to check with your physician before you take any of these herbs, okay? Take any of them. But I'm sharing them because these are the ones that I take or I drink as a tea, and they help me through my moments. They help me through my stages of coping. Okay, my healthy coping mechanism is a healthy cup of tea. I am not even gonna front. I can go make me a nice cup of tea, sit down, and just enjoy how beautiful that tea is. Okay, and receive all of the benefits that it's made to give to me. So my tea combination this week, I'm calling this my herbal blend for emotional healing. Okay, passion flower, ashwagandha, lavender, and peppermint. Now, I can tell you I don't use the lavender, but I will put in some oolong. I don't use lavender because I tend to be allergic to flowers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. And recently, it hasn't been working, so I may not put any lavender in mine. But passion flower, I can do. It calms stress and anxiety. Ashwagandha helps the body to adapt to stress. Lavender relaxes the nervous system. And peppermint aids in clarity and focus, right? How you want to make these teas, if you're making your own tea, I always recommend that people get those cotton non-bleached tea bags, okay? You can order those. Until then, people sponsor me. I can't tell you who I get mine from, but you can go ahead and get you some of those. Look them up, Google it, Amazon, I'm sure got them. And you want to take a half a teaspoon of each of the herbs and put it inside of that bag. You want to boil your water, and then you want to steep it, meaning let it sit in the water so that it can pull all of the nutrients and all of those good benefits from the herbs, okay? And then you can drink it while you're journaling. You can drink it while you're sitting and reflecting. You can drink it while you're sitting there and you're about to meditate, or when you come out of meditation, or during your meditation. You can sit with a cup of tea. Start your meditation out with a cup of tea. Don't drink it all at one time. Sit, meditate, and when you're done, you come back out to your cup of tea. All right. So now for this week, I want to share with you a couple of journal prompts just in case, if again, you're trying to figure out, well, what do I use as coping mechanisms, right? So what you can look at is, one, you want to say, what unhealthy coping mechanisms have I relied on, and what is their root cause? Because a lot of times we have coping mechanisms and we don't even know where it came from. We don't even know where it stems from. But you want to find out where it stems from. You want to go back to figuring out, well, why did I feel that way? I'll tell you one of my coping mechanisms that's a healthy coping mechanism for me, even though some people may not consider it healthy for them. It's healthy for me. It's staying on my P's and Q's when it comes down to my ability to defend myself. And when I say defend myself, I mean physically. No, I ain't going to be in the middle of the street fighting nobody. No, but I remember my karate classes. I remember those things. I have a husband who believes in me having self-defense and things of that sort. And the reason why I can think about that coping mechanism, I can remember as a child having dreams of seeing an abusive relationship. That's where it stems from for me. Dreams. I had dreams of seeing it. And then I experienced it as I grew up. I experienced being in domestic violent type of relationships, in abusive type of relationships. So yeah, coping mechanisms, yeah. I'll never say anybody ever beat me up because they didn't. We fought, and it was not healthy. It was not a healthy space, but we fought. You understand what I'm saying to you? But for me, as a woman out here in these streets, yeah. Okay? But it's a coping mechanism that I know that I don't just pop off just to be popping off. No, it's if I feel like I'm going to have any bodily harm, any harm to my body, any harm to my mind, to my psyche, to my spirit, yeah, I'm ready to fight that off. I've learned how to fight in prayer. I've learned how to fight spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Okay? I've learned those ways for myself, right? And then what you want to turn around and ask yourself is, what healthier coping mechanisms can I implement this week? So as you identify them, think about some of the positive ones that I gave you and see if you can use them, right? See if you can use them on the opposite side of when you have to deal with the things you're dealing with. Again, remember I said triggers. Somebody might trigger something. An emotion might get triggered, and that'll allow you to be able to go and start self-assessing where something may have come from, right? What I've come to realize as I'm closing out, right? Coping can help you survive, but healing and using good coping mechanisms can help you thrive. They can help you thrive into a most healthy space, into healthier places, and dealing with and having healthier relationships, healthy relationship with yourself, healthy relationship with our Creator, healthy relationships with your community, your family, your kids, and things of that sort. Because a lot of times we don't realize that coping mechanisms can be toxic. And we all know anything toxic is negativity to an environment. And why would you want to bring negativity to an environment when you should be wanting to pour out pure, healthy, pure goodness, pure goodness? You understand what I'm saying to you? So that concludes my episode. Episode 11. I can't believe I'm all the way to episode 11 already. It might even be episode 12, but I think it's episode 11. Let me double check. No, I think it is episode 11. But I want to say thank you all for joining me, Sister Femi of Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl, as we went through this here, talking about stop playing in your face. This is what I call this episode. Stop playing in your face. And the reason why I say you playing in your face is because you have these coping mechanisms that are not doing you any justice. They're not allowing you to pour any love on yourself if they're not allowing you to heal and grow. So please stop playing in your face. Stop playing in your own face. You feel what I'm saying? We don't like when other people play in our face. So why should you be playing in your face? Right? All right. So I want to say thank you again for joining me for Chronicles of a Broken Church Girl, where, listen, we talk about that healing over here. Okay? We talk about that healing over here. All right. I will talk to you all soon. And thank you again for joining me, Sister Femi. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.